It's the 16th of the 5th, 2025. It's 22 minutes past 8. This is your Friday night show where we discuss all things in the weird and wacky world that is the Wonder Fs. And in particular, we cast our lenses, zoom our scopes nice and tight in on FP1 and FP2 at the Imola Grand Prix. I'm telling you, it's going to get techie. Lots of things kicking off. We will talk about Oscar Piastri. I've discovered two sound bites that will compare and contrast, show you the juxtaposition as far as OJ Piastri and who he is as versus Lando Norris, aka Dustin from Stranger Things. And it is telling, chat, particularly if we're having the conversation under the most obvious umbrella heading of which one of those two McLaren drivers is going to get it done in 2025. So too, we'll talk about race pace. We'll have a quick convo about FP2, FP1 because there were incidents. It was incident laden even. We'll talk about Lewis, who's come out and said some things, talked about his critiques and clapped back apparently. And so too, we'll talk about Max Verstappen and the grave state of the championship as far as its competitive landscape, because Max and Helmut Marko have said some things, haven't they? Should we talk about... Let's talk about race pace in the first instance, because that's what you guys will want to know. Here's what you need to know. Race pace is techie and it's all over the shop. Lando Norris and OJ Piastri, by dint of the McLaren MCL39 cars, have the whip hand. You can see the bottom left average time, the 119.998 in race simulation pace on mediums is the quickest of all. Lando Norris, and he's something of a specialist, they said on the broadcast, and I don't disagree with them. If Pastri's prologue, and if history doesn't repeat, but sometimes it does rhyme, you'll recall last year at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, the Lando Norris was chasing down one Maximilian Verstappen towards the end of the race. Therefore, you can assume that Lando Norris isn't a bad driver. Not now, nor has he ever been, and definitely not around this track, nor around the Red Bull Ring in Austria. So too, Oscar Piastri, he had the whip hand as far as the absolute quickest times, but as far as race pace, ever so slightly slower than one Lando Norris. What's important to pick at here as well, look at the Ferrari boys on a 120.2 in the hands of Charles Leclerc and a 120.4 in the hands of Sir Lewis Hamilton. There is a 120.5 there from one Maximilian Verstappen. We'll come on to what he said about that, because I'm not sure that bodes well. Listen, if we're investing as Maximilian Verstappen fans in Maximilian Verstappen for some 18 through high-time champion, being able to keep the McLaren boys honest, then I'm not sure that bodes well. Maybe Maximilian Verstappen with a couple different tinkers between FP2 and Q1 tomorrow can bring that car to a place where he might be able to get it on pole. Maybe. But as far as race pace, even these cooler climbs, it's going to get techier than techie things for him. Open, by the way, let's talk about Ferrari before we talk about Maximilian Verstappen's circumstance proper. Ferrari knew that coming to Imola was going to be pressurised circumstance, that this is their first of two home races. This is Italy, chat. So what Ferrari can't afford to come and do is underperform. What they can't afford to come and do is come here with shenanigans and nonsense, look like an outfit that doesn't know which way, which direction it needs to head in. And then you get this shot. This is a shot of Charles Leclerc who's out there and his helmet is being lifted off of his head. Chat, what are we doing here? Like, do we need to have an intervention for Scuderia Ferrari? They are underperformance and or incompetence at this stage, par excellence, in extremis. What are we doing? This is absolute, and I know this is F1 and there's a gazillion thousand variables and things happen, but to Charles Leclerc again, to Ferrari again, lest we forget, hitherto quarter of the season has gone and we've had Lewis Hamilton over the radio telling them, listen, Carlos is by me, you want me to let him through as well? This is shambolic now. Charles Leclerc has complained, so too Sir Lewis, ad infinitum, about the car's handling dynamic, it being super twitchy at the rear. Combined entry is as near as makes no difference, impossible to handle. They need to make the suspension more rigid, but they can't due to the bloody design philosophy being so bloody prohibitive. We know that Frederick Vasseur won't have many more years left as team principal of Scuderia Ferrari if past his prologue. Arriva Bene didn't get too many years. Bonotto, similar story. Why? because they came in, said that they would make changes and failed to win themselves any silverware. Rest assured that this is sword of Damocles settings for Frederick Vasseur now. If he doesn't win, that's one thing. But if he doesn't win and they look stupid in the process, if it's always "we are checking" over the radio, if it's always plan A, plan B, plan C, if it's always coming to the business, no, stay out. If it's that sort of nonsense, then they're bringing shame on the family name. Rob Smedley has told you already that if you are winning in a Ferrari, if you are bringing silverware to Italy's team, that the Tifosi will love and adorn you. You'll never need to buy a meal nor a drink in Italy. It's that level of passion and devotion. If you are losing, however, Rob Smedley says, they will spit at you in the streets. I think, though they're not there yet, they're not at the spitting in the street stage yet, I would argue that the guys and girls over at Scuderia Ferrari, the red car with the yellow badge and a black prancing horse atop, are closer to the spitting in the street phase than they are the adornment phrase, the not ever having to buy a drink or a meal in Italy. Oh, and it gets worse. So have a listen to what Sir Lewis Hamilton has said, and this divides opinion. We'll listen to it and then we'll react to it. Go on then.
99% of them, or probably 100% of them, don't know what I've been through to get where I am today. And I think the other things I often find myself having to just remind myself, I have won 7 world titles. I have won more than any other driver in history. I have to remind myself that I also have done great things. And whilst things are not always going to be great, and we're having this period of time, things will get better.
Bit techie, that. It's a bit techie. And I agree with 99% of what Sir Lewis Hamilton says. He has come in for a lot of criticism. People are expecting a lot. And I feel like we were set up for failure as far as the marketing campaign that Ferrari ran. As if Sir Lewis was the second coming. As if success in Formula 1, when you have a 7-time champion, GOAT settings, Mount Rushmore of F1, first round Hall of Fame F1 peddler in Sir Lewis Hamilton. But I don't think that's the truth. There is no such thing as success, particularly if you talk to Alain Prost about his campaign at Scuderia Ferrari many moons ago, 1990, 1991. That's why Alain Prost sacked it off, retired, waited for a seat to appear at the head of the table in Frank Williams' team that were building God tier cars at the forefront of technology. Even Alain Prost, one of the goatiest peddlers that you've ever seen, said, you know what, this Ferrari nonsense, all this bureaucracy and politicking is far too much for me. I understand under that umbrella heading that it will be difficult for Sir Lewis at Ferrari, but I would argue, as much as he's well within his rights to clap back, people are only critiquing because once upon a time he looked like a fire-breathing dragon. It was Singapore 18, it was 2007, ran the outside. Lewis at one point in an F1 car couldn't do anything wrong. He was perfect, as near as makes no difference. Now at the ripe old age of 40, trying to do something that only 3 men in F1 history have ever done. 66, Brabham. 1950, Giuseppe Farina. 1957, Juan Manuel Fangio. This is an unprecedented circumstance. Already, Sir Lewis Hamilton was operating in rarefied F1 air. If he manages to win an unprecedented 8th championship, this will take him clear right. We can't even have an argument about the GOAT anymore. It is consensus. It would be unanimous even. However, that being said, I'm not sure that Lewis Hamilton should. I'm not sure he's better. I'm not sure his attention does. Let me put it this way. I'm not sure if he harbours aspirations. Again, don't listen to it. What do I know? I've only been watching F1 a gazillion years. And if you're going to listen to Sir Lewis Hamilton, what do I know? I've never driven a car. I've never walked a mile in his shoes. So therefore, I shouldn't know anything. I would argue this, though. If I were Sir Lewis Hamilton, and again, nodding managerial by the accounting settings, what do I know? But if I were Lewis Hamilton, I would argue this, that his resources would be better spent looking at the car, solving for that, helping the team, not cursing the team when they let him down, fostering rapport, even though he will get cheesed off because he is human. I would argue that Lewis Hamilton's resources at this juncture, as at the 16th of the 5th 2025, will be better spent not taking aim or clapping back at critics, but solving for the automotive Puget's cube, the very complicated one, the Scuderia Ferrari, and that handling dynamic of that very difficult SF25 and how he blends with it. No more difficult, no more complicated or simple points than that. And I would beg to differ, Sir Lewis. Just the fact that this is a very low-hanging, easily shoot-downable trope that oftentimes I hear sports athletes trot out. Just because you haven't walked a mile in my shoes, that doesn't mean you can tell me anything. What? Some of the greatest experts in sports journalism history have never played a game in their life, but they study this thing. They know it often better than the athletes do themselves. So when people are criticising Sir Lewis, I would argue that he shouldn't take offence to it. It's praiseworthy. If they didn't think he was so good once upon a time, it wouldn't even be a subject topic. Nobody would care. Oh, and by the way, let me play you this because Lando Norris was heard talking about Miami Grand Prix and its circumstance. And I think this tells a lot. This will tell you a lot. We've criticised Lando Norris, right? Mental fortitude, lack thereof, the poor racecraft, failing to chew his food before he swallows. But in listening to this, again, sometimes I'll be a bit harsh, but in listening to this, I think sometimes this gives plena color to exactly the points to which I'm referring. Roll the clip.
Make up a lot of things about what might change, but it's just some tracks suit us better than others. Simple as that. We were surprised, like I said, about how quick we were come Sunday. If I knew I was going to be that quick on Sunday, if we knew we were going to be that quick, maybe I would have made some different decisions. But the car was amazing. So I think it's been good the whole year. That's obvious. Here was another step forward. But we're always trying to work on things and improve things. Hang
on, I'm going to have to rewind this to just hear what Lando Norris said. And remember, the context is this. He's talking about the Miami Grand Prix. Lando Norris said, if I recall, if we knew the car would be so quick as it was, then I would have driven it differently, the race. I wouldn't have taken so many. Let us play that back in case I'm being noddy and have misheard and or misconstrued Lando Norris, aka Dustin from Stranger Things point.
Than others. Simple as that. We were surprised, like I said, about how quick we were come Sunday. If I knew I was going to be that quick on Sunday, if we knew we were going to be that quick, maybe I would have made some different decisions.
If I knew we were going to be that quick on Sunday, if we knew we were going to be that quick on Sunday, we would have done different things in the race. Of course, he's alluding to the very aggressive, somewhat ambitious manoeuvre that he tried to pull round the outside on his old mate with whom he travels back and forth from Grand Prix on his private jet, the one that they call Maximilian Verstappen. Now that's Lando Norris. Sometimes he'll say something and we're not close enough to the circumstance to call ball feathers on it. In this instance, however, we can compare and contrast with his old mate OJ Piastri, because in the post-race press conference at the Miami Grand Prix, OJ had something different to say, contradicting his mate Lando Norris, aka Dustin from Stranger Things, to a point, to 2 decimal places. Roll the clip, Cameron.
To get past Max, tried pretty hard to get past with everything still on my car. So it was not easy, but picked my moments when I needed to. I could tell that we had a lot of pace from the get-go today, and it was going to be a matter of when I got past, not if. But I wanted to do it as efficiently as I could, because I knew once Lando got back behind me that he was going to be catching us a lot, and wanted to get through quickly but cleanly, and I felt like I did a pretty good job of that, and then built a gap, and
I'm going to have to listen to this again because, again, I don't want to be stupid here. I want to make sure it's me not being noddy. Did Oscar Jack Piastri, after the Miami Grand Prix even, say what I think he just said? Roll the clip again,
to get past Max, tried pretty hard to get past with everything still on my car. So it was not easy, but picked my moments when I needed to. I could tell that we had a lot of pace from the get-go today, and it was going to be a matter of when I got past, not if. But I wanted to do it as efficiently as
I could tell, says Oscar Jack Piastri, that we had a lot of pace in that car today. that it was a matter of when we were going to get past Max Verstappen, not if. Chat, are you seeing the difference, the divergence in these two and their mentality? Because I'm telling you, Freak though, you're a legend. I've been saying it for many years. Ferrari needs a Toto Wolff, a machine, a process science-driven German-Austrian engineer manager. I mean, didn't they have that in Mattia Binotto though? FR kiddo. I don't know. I'm not sure that's the panacea, mate, at this point. I feel like they need to burn the whole of Scuderia Ferrari down and just build it back up from ground zero at this point. I'm not sure what the alternative, but let's deal with this Lando and Oscar Piastri thing. I've debated and speculated for a long time that there is a fundamental difference in the way that these two bods think as F1 drivers. Therein lies I don't know if Lando is lying. I don't know whether Lando doesn't know what he's talking about, but the ultimate point is this: the outcomes are so vastly different as far as the way that Lando Norris characterises the Miami Grand Prix as versus Oscar Piastri. It's worthy of note. Of course, if he lacks that judgment, Lando Norris, I'm talking about Dustin from Stranger Things, if he lacks that judgment in the car, sufficient to see that he has nearly 0.8 in hand on Max Verstappen and that he needs to weaponise that, therefore, then that, ladies and gentlemen, is a problem. And by the way, Oscar Piastri is not getting any worse, chat, not by a long shot. On the contrary, he's getting better, not by the race, by the second. Look, here's what he said about summer, or the off-season even, between this season and last. He said he was trying to find little bits everywhere of improvement, continuous improvement. But Andrea Stella says, well, you know what, I think it's a little bit different. Here's what Andrea Stella says, as far as what how and why Oscar Piastri's improved this year as versus last. Quote, well, I think the most important improvement, if anything, is that Oscar has become a faster driver. I think when you're faster, then you have more opportunities to process, more time to process, more bandwidth to process things. This is true when you were in the car, and this is also true when you are outside the car, because like the speed is there, let's process all the other marginal gains that will then, at the end of the weekend, constitute the performance you need to have the kind of result he's having at the moment. Telling you, it's going to get techie for the rest of them. Stephen, you're a legend. Welcome to the club. Get yourself over to the Discord, mate. Piastri, this article continues, in Autosport, by the way, had talked about using his time more intelligently and identifying particular areas of improvement rather than, say, spend more hours in the simulator. He's being specific about his gains and his incremental improvement, and therefore, chat, that OJ Piastri fella is he's a dangerous driver. He's dangerous for all of the 19 if we're having the conversation, of course, under the umbrella heading of who's going to win the championship. Specificity, singularity of focus. He's gone away and he's done his homework. He realised that last year his pace in absolute terms, particularly in qualifying under the bright lights, wasn't where it needed to be. That's why he lost to Lando Norris, something like 20-3 over the course of all the qualifying sessions last year in the Sprint 2. What's going on now with that? He's as near as makes no difference, levelling with Lando. I wouldn't be surprised if at a Lando track in Emilia-Romagna at Imola this race weekend, Oscar J. Piastri goes and drops it on pole ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. And that doesn't bode well for Lando Norris, not one bit. And you'd think, the way that Lando's carrying on, that Oscar Jack Piastri is the only person that he needs to beat. Let's not forget that there's some fella in there as well, number 1, formerly known as number 33, some fella called Max Verstappen. He's not bad, I don't think. Could still put it on pole this race weekend. Now, whether he can keep up depends on who you're talking to. I mean, can he do impossible things? He has been known to in the past. But here, Max Verstappen's telling us what he thinks is the truth, that, listen, they're a gazillion miles away. And again, the context is this, as follows. This article writes, Max Verstappen fears Red Bull will not be able to close the gap to McLaren anytime soon, notwithstanding the fact that they were meant to bring a big floor and side pod inlet package to this race weekend. This article continues, Verstappen finished 40 seconds behind McLaren's race winner Oscar Jack Piastri at the most recent Miami Grand Prix, having beaten both McLarens to pole, but then slumped back into that. He was nowhere. Absolutely no. He couldn't compete with those drivers. And you're not going to tell me that nobody could tell me that that's a fair reflection. Stephen, you're a legend. Proper. Thank you so much, mate. Out here gifting memberships. Nobody's going to tell me that's a fair reflection of where they are on merit as F1 peddlers, not with a straight face nor in good faith. This article continues. When asked Max Verstappen how much of a performance jump he's expecting from his latest version of his RB21, Max Verstappen responded thus, quote, a little bit, but we've already had a few races with some updates, so this is again a little step forward. Hopefully we find a little more performance in the car, but I don't expect, of course, to suddenly close the gap entirely all of a sudden to McLaren. This article continues. In 2 weeks, further upgrades are expected to arrive for Barcelona's Spanish Grand Prix when a stricter technical directive on FlexiWing TD018, if I recall. Don't quote me. Don't quote me. When a stricter technical directive on flexing front wings is expected to come into play, 15mm to 13mm on the outboard portion of the front wing and 5 to 3.5, I want to say, on the inboard portion. Verstappen doesn't think that will cause any fluctuations in the competitive landscape for 2025, though saying, quote, that will not give you 0.8 of a second, of course. That's the gap at times, or at least it was in Miami. I'm telling you, chat, this is chaotic. If you want to see a competitive 2025, then you better hope, cross your fingers and pray to all the racing gods, old and new, that Maximilian Verstappen can pull out miracles out of his AWS, right? And that technical directive, contrary to McLaren's insiders, those who are working there on the MCL 39, contrary to what they say, will affect them to the downside as far as their performance. Because if it does not, if we are stasis and McLaren stay where they are and Red Bull can't kick on and bridge that material time gap, Houston, we have ourselves a massive problem. Cheating, says Joanna. I would like to see OJ Piastri ankle break. Max, as he did drive off into the distance in thinking McLaren 1-2 Sunday. Hit that like you're a legend, Joanna. Steve, enjoy all. Time to give this man what he's worth. I'm telling you, it's going to get techie. Go on then, let me finish with reading this as we round third base. Normally we'd go longer, but your boys got to go to bed today. It's getting too chaotic. The week has been long. Go on then, let me tell you about motorsport. Here's what they say about Max Verstappen and what Helmut Marko are saying about the circumstance at the Imola Grand Prix, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Max Verstappen says he was passed and dropped by the McLarens during the Imola Formula 1 practice long runs, as we saw the evidence of aforementioned. With Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko saying that the team lacks 4/10. We tried a lot of bits, some worked better than others, but yet overall we're not fast enough at the moment, Verstappen told Sky. Asked how high his confidence is that he can still eke out a 4th pole of the season in 7 races, he replied, at the moment, not very high. We definitely need a bit more work just to get a better, thorough corner balance to go faster through corner balance. Come on, Cameron, sort your life out, chap. In the long runs, I got overtaken by McLaren, so that says enough, right? They pull away, but even then, compared to other teams around us, it was a bit tough today. No kidding, Sherlock. He's right, chat. Should we bring up the bloody statistics and the evidence again? Just so we see to what Maximilian Verstappen's referring. So Lando's quicker, right? What's Max doing? 120.5. So Lando's quicker. Oscar's quicker. Charlie's quicker. Lewis is quicker in race pace. Antonelli's quicker. What are we doing here, chat? All of them, they're bods. I mean, how many are there? So Max Verstappen is 7th on race pace, as near as makes no difference, or 6th if we include George Russell. That's exactly where he said he was, and people said that he's just talking nonsense, lowballing the pace of the RB21. It's techie, this, chat. I don't think I realised the extent to which that McLaren had the whip hand, because now, if they're that much quicker in race pace around a track like Imola that's cooler climbs, both track and ambiance, then Houston, we have ourselves a problem, particularly if you're looking to see history and Maximilian Verstappen win himself a 5th consecutive championship of the drivers' variety back to back to back. I'm telling you, it's going to get chaotic. And Helmut Marko, the Austrian, head of the Red Bull Junior program, said as follows: "We've made progress with our updates, but basically we haven't come much closer to McLaren. The fact remains that McLaren is absolutely superior. In Miami, we were 7/10 to a second behind in the race per lap. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a chasm. It's of gargantuan consequences, is it not, when you consider that F1 is a story told in tenths, and a tenth of a gap, therefore, is a chasm. That's material. And now you've got 9 of them between the bulls that are red and McLaren. Oh, the humanity." Here, Helmut Marko continues, "It looks like we're about 4 tenths behind. That would mean we've made a step forward." Imagine. He's not wrong numerically. But if you're still 4 tenths behind the team per lap, and that's progress, what are we doing here? Oh, the humanity, for real. For real. Marko continues, "But let's wait and see how qualifying goes and how the tyre deg is in the race. It seems like that has improved a bit. Also, we have something positive. Tsunoda-san is within a tenth of Max and is coping well with this setup." What are we doing here, chat? 100% easy, G. You can never count out Max. And if I were a betting belligerent, a betting degenerate even, I might consider placing a couple quid on Max Verstappen at circa 9-2. 18% of the time they say this dude can put it on pole. For the race, that might be a step too far, a tad too ambitious. But if past is prologue and Maximilian Verstappen, over the last 6 paid sessions at this Grand Prix, he's only lost 1. That was to Sir Lewis Hamilton many moons ago, 3 years ago now, and that was in qualifying. All of the other qualifying and races between now and then, Maximilian Verstappen has won. If F1 history doesn't repeat, sometimes it does rhyme. This feels like a very similar circumstance to Suzuka. Do you remember? It all looked all of a sudden like McLaren were going to DICK on everybody, put 10 to 20 seconds on the rest of the field, and then all of a sudden you see that Maximilian Verstappen, if past his prologue, hasn't lost a session worthy of note, not a qualifying or a race at Suzuka, for as long as the eye can see. Same circumstance. So who would I? You would be a fool at this stage to back against Maximilian Verstappen. Oh, stop glazing him though. What about? I'm just talking facts here. What do you want for me to do? Like, disbelieve the evidence that my own eyes and ears are showing me? No thanks. Listen, we'll be back tomorrow, of course, 10 a.m. and FP3 and qualifying live streaming. So too the race, 30 minutes before lights out each and every single time. I'm here for it, chat. I feel like we might be about to witness something great at the hands of Max Verstappen as versus the boys and girls in McLaren. Potentially not in the race. That might be a tad reachy, a tad ambitious, let's say. But like I said to you a gazillion times, qualifying is the highlight of the race weekend for me, even though you don't get any points on Saturday. Because sometimes in F1, anything can happen, and it usually does. What are we doing? Yeah.